The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is the first big Nintendo Switch first-party title to be priced at $70, and it has brought up a whole slew of conversation around the internet, especially with the second trailer not really showing us all of the hooks and gimmicks that the game is going to have. But as we go further into the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom launching, I do feel that Nintendo will reveal more information, if not have a full direct solely based on the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. But I do want to talk about that price tag just a little bit and the effect that it's having right now on the market. Now, some did worry that it could affect sales in a negative way compared to the $60 price tag of the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and that absolutely still could happen. But if that was going to happen, it's definitely not showing at this point, because on Amazon Japan and also Amazon here in the US, in addition to a couple other countries, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is currently the best-selling game on the whole site. So right now, essentially they update it frequently in terms of what's selling at the highest rate. So Hogwarts Legacy has just been killing it across the board on Xbox, but especially on PlayStation, where it's been number one in multiple different regions. But it wasn't until recently that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has been updated. Now, on new releases, so games that just came out or are coming out very soon, that's still Hogwarts Legacy. But on Amazon bestsellers, where it clearly states here our most popular products based on sales, updated frequently, so the sales rate, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is absolutely the best selling game across multiple different regions. And I think that a lot of people felt that this could happen as well. Even though it's a $70 price tag, people were still gonna go out there and buy the game regardless, because people feel the game is worth that. And I think that there's been a little bit of confusion in terms of some of the stuff that I've said, or maybe kind of what I've portrayed out there when it comes to it. So I want to make sure that I get this across very clearly here so everybody understands my stance on it. If you didn't see before, if you're a new sub or whatever the case is, I personally feel, especially a game like Legend of Zelda, to me, it's worth even more than $70 because I bought the collector's edition for $130 plus tax. And Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games of all time. I love the game so much, but I feel that each individual has a subjective opinion. There are certain games that I feel, even it's a MSRP, so manufacturer suggested retail price of $60, that doesn't mean I think it's worth $60. There are Nintendo first party games that come out that even though they MSRP at $60, I don't think they are worth $60. Like Pikmin 3, I think was 60, and there's like Donkey Kong, and there's like a few other games out there that I'm like, I'm not sure if that's worth 60 for me, so I don't think I'm gonna go out there and buy it. I don't really care what an MSRP says or what people think a standard is. I've always conformed to my own standards and my own thoughts in terms of what I think something is worth, because game prices aren't set in stone for the entirety of its whole life or duration. There's sales, there's discounts, there's all sorts of stuff that you can do in order to get games cheaper. You can wait a while, so there's all sorts of things. So I've never felt that I need to conform to any MSRP in the first place. I've always bought games based on what I think the game is worth, and that's how I'll always be, which is why I didn't necessarily have a major issue and talk about it like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, whenever Sony decided to go to $70 games themselves, or when other publishers decide to go to $70 games. I will decide on a game-by-game basis if it's worth that or not. So seeing the fact that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on Amazon in all these different countries is number one already, where it's passing up the rate of sales of a game as popular as Hogwarts, tells me that most people feel that it's going to be worth it as well. I think there's going to be a lot of people, once the reviews start coming out and once more footage starts coming out and once Nintendo kind of gets into the full swing of marketing and they start remembering how much fun they had with Breath of the Wild, that yeah, a little bit upset. Obviously you want games to be cheaper, and heck yeah, I would love it to be 60 and not for it to go up. But once again, I've stated this once, I'll say it again, games are subjective in terms of how you feel. If you don't feel something is worth it, then you don't buy it at that price. You can be upset, you can complain about it or whatever, but I don't feel that other people should dictate or try to manipulate how others should feel about pricing of a game. Like, if you think it's not worth it for you, that's cool. You think it's not worth it for you. If somebody else thinks it's worth it for them, then it's worth it for them. I just see a lot of grown men and women try to sit there and try to dictate this person should buy this for that, or you should spend your money here or there. It's like, no, you can do whatever you want with your money. You can do whatever you want with your time. You work hard for your money, so spend it where you want, do what you want with it, and somebody else can also spend where they want or do what they want with it as well. If you don't feel it's worth it, then vote with your wallet, you know. And that's kind of how I've always felt pretty much throughout the whole, my whole lifetime buying games. I started buying games, I think it was like the 6th generation, where I could start affording games, you know, PS2, Xbox, GameCube, start affording all the systems and games. And I've never felt the need to rush out there and buy everything if, you know, if it didn't fit me, or if I felt that it wasn't worth the $50 at the time that was the MSRP. So that's kind of how I feel on this, and I think that it's going to be reflected in the sales. I think that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is going to be a massive seller, and people are going to pony up for it. But I mean, there's going to be certain games that obviously can't hit that $70 price tag, and people are going to rush out there and buy it, like a Pikmin 4, for example. That can't sell at 70 like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom can, because Pikmin is not that. So Nintendo has stated that it's a case-by-case basis, but I wanted to make sure that I cleared things up out there, just so everybody kind of knows my stance. Like, hey, look, buy whatever you want, do what you want. If you're upset about it, that's fine. If you want to not buy it, that's fine. If you want to buy it, that's cool. Buy it too. Buy whatever you want, do what you want, enjoy what you want, play the games that you want, have fun at the end of the day. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you on that. So I did want to get into some other things too. When it comes to like a survey with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom that could reveal some very interesting details about the game. So I wanted to go over a number of things here. Shout out to Nintendo Everything for the article on this. And they stated that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom received its latest trailer recently, which I thought was really good because it showed off a lot of variety and fixes to the issues in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But Nintendo has been very careful in choosing what to show. Now, even though the game is just out in a few months from now, there's not a lot that we do know. Now, we all know, obviously, it's a follow-up to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and that should give us some ideas of what we can expect, but fans definitely want to find out more in terms of what is going to set this game apart from some of the stuff that we've already seen. Now, hints of this can be found maybe via Nintendo's survey that went out recently. Now, a couple of Reddit users have stated that this was emailed to them. There was one in France and then one maybe in the UK. And after the participants watch a video for the game, Nintendo has asked them what they think about 2 statements mentioning that Tears of the Kingdom will be bigger than Breath of the Wild. This is something that shouldn't come to really a surprise. We've seen the underground areas, we've seen the sky areas and all of that. So there's going to be a lot more to explore in this game. But there are a couple of other interesting statements in this survey as well. And the first does say that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will, quote, include new and interesting ways to interact with the world compared to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, another says that the game will, quote, have the best story / atmosphere of any game in the series. Now, I want to talk about this just briefly before we get back into this. One thing that I noticed and many other hardcore Zelda fans noticed is that the immediate, I would say, emphasis or focus on Ganon and him talking and the malice that he had and the atmosphere of it. The atmosphere, the blood moon, what they actually did was far more impactful story-wise, in my opinion, than what they showed for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, where it was really more about the freedom and the gameplay in terms of what we saw originally with that game. But this game, they're setting up a more grand scenario and a more involved story, especially with the scene of Link diving in after Princess Zelda when they go to explore the tomb there. So I think that that is absolutely happening. But the best story, I mean, that is going to be very, very hard to top. But I think that this game, once again, is trying to fix the issues that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has, which some people felt that it had a very weak story. Great lore, great setup, great premise, but weak story in practice. Now, when asked which features sound most interesting, options include battling new enemy types, exploring new areas like islands, floating in the sky, buildings and riding new vehicle types, seeing how Hyrule locations have changed, new abilities, a, quote, dark and thrilling atmosphere, and a new story. Some of these are quite obvious, while others have been hinted at in trailers, not including the one that recently went out, of course. Now, There's a couple different things to highlight here. Now, regarding the story, the survey mentions, quote, "In The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, you embark on a grand adventure that pits Link and Zelda against a dangerous force. Your loyalty to each other will prevail in a story that occurs after the events of the previous game. You will encounter many thrills and fears on your quest to save the land of Hyrule." Now, finally, when asked what they'd like to know before the release of the game, there were numerous options, including puzzles / shrines. But there was a question asking about which feature they'd like to see return the most. Dungeons were an option, but this doesn't confirm they will be back in this game. So there is a lot to talk about here when it comes down to it. Of course, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom coming out May 12th, 2023. And I think that really, like I said before, this game is opting to not reinvent the wheel with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I don't think it's going to have that initial, oh my gosh, this is something completely different, since it's a follow-up, it's a sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But what I think it's going to do, it's going to take all of those things that people have pointed out after the honeymoon period of Breath of the Wild, like the enemy variety, like the story, like some of the mechanics with combat, and it's going to say, how can we make those so much better in every single way, in addition to building another game on top of what we already had. So the story needs to be improved dramatically. Now, I like the story. I like the hands-off approach. I'm more of a gameplay person first and kind of layer in story when you feel like it. I mean, I'm fine with however the games are, but I do think that, yeah, I can understand why some people don't necessarily like the way that the story was played out in there compared to previous Zelda games. So I think that this clearly shows that that is going to be something that is of high focus and interest and importance in this game with Tears of the Kingdom. I also think from what we saw, obviously exploring new areas and new ways to explore those areas is going to be very vital to this experience and what players want. We saw that in the trailer with the vehicles that you can maneuver and everything, but I feel that maneuvering them in unique and interesting ways, and it's fun, that's going to be the biggest thing here. But we'll see about the dungeons. But what they've shown so far is that they do have underground areas. So we've seen that a little bit in one of the original trailers for the game, and we also saw that again briefly in the newest trailer as well. So I do think that they could have some type of quasi dungeons in the underground areas where you can go get some type of secret or mystic weapon or something in there, and you solve different puzzles and there's different things to do. But it's kind of open-ended to where you can go and you can come back, and it's not required for you to do that. It's not required, at least, for you to do every single one. And maybe even it's secret areas where you can get rewarded for even going there, so people who go there and solve those puzzles get something that people who don't. Whereas in previous Zelda games, you have to go through each dungeon, you have to go through each one and get this, then beat this, then go in order. I think they might do it out of order this time. And of course, we'll see how shrines are and stuff like that. But I think that they're going to really layer it in an interesting way to where it doesn't make it to where you can get stuck on there and you have to solve it, or you don't progress in the game, but there's still going to be dungeon-like areas in the underground, and maybe even sky areas, sky fortresses or dungeons that are kind of connected, and you can solve them at your own pace, and you're going to have vehicles that you can see you can pilot and combat in between there. So I think they might do dungeons, but in a very intelligent or suave or unique type of way, or just flat out have them in certain areas, almost a la Super Mario Sunshine with classic 3D platforming compared to the FLUDD. So I think that that is definitely an option with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I think that there is so much still to uncover, but for me, some of the things that I saw that really got me excited about the game, in the trailer at least, was the enemy variety. Now, I've talked about this a little bit, I think in the live streams if you come out to those, but the enemy variety with the re-deads and the enemy variety with the different flying enemies, and also with the customization with the weapons, has me very excited that if there is a weapon damaging system, you'll be able to customize that or fix it up or do something. I definitely think they've changed that up, because they showed one weapon in the most recent trailer where you shoot the arrow and it flies up and hits the enemy in the sky, and that's not something that you can just normally get. That's something you have to modify or attach onto a weapon. So I think that if they're going to do modifications or attachments to weapons that aren't just random like we got in Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, I think that means you're going to be able to fix up your weapons or modify your weapons, or you might not even have the weapon durability at all. So I think that it's going to be very interesting to see how all of that plays out. But I think there was little subtle things in the trailer that really showed that they're trying to really do something bigger and better than the original Breath of the Wild, and it starts by at least showing us fixing all of those issues, and then later they're really going to get in with more of the story and get in with more of the hooks, because we still have no idea why there is a Link with the super long hair and the outfit that he has compared to the Link that we do know, which is the Champion Tunics Link. Like, there's still a huge missing link, no pun intended, between what is happening there. They have not detailed that at all, and clearly there is something major between those two, especially with lore videos that are coming out talking about ties to Skyward Sword and kind of what's going on there. So I'm very excited to see how it all works out. But make sure you guys check out some of my other videos on the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. If you haven't seen it, I'll have a link for you guys in the description. I've talked a lot about this game. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll see you for the next video. Peace.